We in America are immigrants, or the children of immigrants. We are one people, but a people welded from many nations and races. A people still diverse, but sharing common aspirations and drawn together in their common contribution of the skills and talents that have made America a great nation. Here, too, the latest arrivals from abroad have an opportunity to study the language and history of America. The language of America.
Ghana, Africa, yo! Ghana, Africa, yo, eh, eh.
Ghana, Africa, yo! Ghana, Africa, yo, eh,
My dad's side of the family speaks Chiluba and Lingala from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, but I don't speak those languages, but I do think that when I learn those languages, it's going to open a big culture door for me as well.
Ne me mettons-nous bien ça dans la tête. Moi, l'Europe n'est pas mon centre. L'Europe est une périphérie de l'Afrique. Vous voyez, ils sont restés plus de 100 ans chez moi, ils n'ont pas parlé ma langue, je parle leur langue. L'avenir, pour moi, l'avenir ne dépend pas d'être compris par l'Europe. Je souhaiterais qu'ils me comprennent, mais ça ne me fait absolument rien. Si vous prenez la carte de l'Afrique, géographiquement, vous pouvez mettre l'Europe et l'Amérique, il nous resterait encore de la place. Pourquoi voulez-vous que ce tropisme, vous savez, le tropisme, pourquoi voulez-vous que je sois comme le tournesol qui tourne autour du soleil? Je suis moi-même le soleil.
No, at home we just speak English. My household, when I was younger, people used to speak French, but currently it's just English. Yeah, I don't think any of us speak French at home.
I mean, I personally don't do too many things that are considered African, like as far as wearing African clothes and things like that. I personally don't do too much of that. My brother used to, who was younger, and I don't think anyone ever told him not to or to turn away from that. I mean, of course, the languages we speak are almost useless in the U.S. because, like at school, because very few people in the country in general speak it proportionally. So it's like we just don't speak that language when we're out in public. But if we're talking to each other, we can speak it.
My family spoke probably majority English at home, and I learned French at home and through my extended family. So like there's like a number of people on both my mom and my dad's side who only speak French or who don't speak English. So it's like a way to kind of tap into that culture.
Anomaa wei so onenam nsuo mu ehwehwe ne duane adi.
I think that it was kind of generational. Like my aunts and uncles always encouraged me to speak French, but like with the younger, like my cousins, they thought like it was cool to learn English and like wanted to practice their English. So that's what I would normally do. And like when my aunts and uncles would like catch me talking to them in English, they would be like, why are you guys always talking in English? But I think, yeah, I kind of like, even now, like I always talk to my cousins in English. Now they're all really good at English, but my French is like probably not as good as their English.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Africa, it's definitely important to be able to speak English if you're going to school. That's, I mean, a requirement. Like, I can't think of a student that could graduate from the equivalent of even middle school that would not have at least a good understanding of the English language. So on that front, and Nigeria is also like that. I mean, even with the accents and all that, there's still a fairly strong push for understanding the English language.
Anomaa wei no nso dina faako ehome.
I personally haven't felt too much of a push to be Americanized or Britishized in that sense. It more became a matter of, oh, okay, if I want to get this, I probably should get better at this. And that's generally what pushed me to at least refining my English when I got to the US. So for me, it wasn't so much someone telling me to change my accent as me realizing that the more I spoke like people around me, the easier it would be to understand and just go on from there.
Just like being part of like that side of my family, especially, like when I go visit my extended family on my dad's side, a lot of times the conversations are mostly in French, but many times there's like heavy usage of Lingala and Suba. And I think probably like the biggest example is like my grandmother, who only used to be able to speak Chiluba. And so I was never able to like fully communicate with her. I learned what I learned basically of the language through her. I can't access a lot of like the, I don't know, I guess maybe like tradition.
So whenever I go to Senegal, I do get a lot of slack for not speaking Wolof. And that makes sense, obviously. I, like, just knowing about how French colonialization has worked, I, like, really detest... I don't like the fact that, like, you know, all schooling in Senegal, essentially all the good schools are going to be taught in French. And the language is definitely... It's not dying, but, like, French is the most, you know, common thing out here in, like, academic settings or in, like, professional settings. But there is like that pushback to reclaim like Wolof as like the, you know, language that everyone in Senegal is speaking, and I think that's a good thing. As far as I'm concerned, like it doesn't impact my life as much just being from the United States. I do want to learn Wolof, but obviously it's much harder. It's spoken language only. It's not written language. So like when they'll write in French. So even that is just a barrier for me to learn it. But I do want to learn it, and I think it's good that people want to keep it moving.
Along with the language comes learning about culture. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's a benefit because having a more expanded view of things, it's always a good thing, I like to think.
The problem of the diaspora is to think of it always and only in return, in terms of its return to its place of origin, and not always and at the same time in return, in terms of its scattering, its further going out, its dissemination. It's the impossibility of ever going home in exactly the same way as you went. The diaspora is always going to be, in a certain way, lost to you. It has to be lost to you because they have a stake, an investment in elsewhere.